The frost bit deeper than any wolf's teeth ever could, but Arya of Shadow Ridge no longer felt it. For 24 years, she'd been called moon-cursed, ghost blood, the omen. Tonight, those whispers became her death sentence. Beta Marcus, her fated mate, the man whose scent should have been home, had looked at her with disgust before the entire pack assembly. I reject you, Arya Winters. I will not bind myself to a freak of nature. Alpha Donovan didn't even wait for the rejection bond to fully sever before banishing her. You have until moonrise to be beyond our borders, or my hunters will finish what the cold starts. Now, 6 hours into the mountains, her thin dress is frozen to her skin. Her bare feet leave bloody prints in the snow. She should lie down. Let the white consume her. But as hypothermia begins to cloud her mind, her chest burns with an inexplicable warmth, a golden thread, pulling her forward through the blizzard toward a cliff face that shouldn't have shelter. Toward 12 dying souls she doesn't yet know will change everything. Toward a destiny her pack was too blind to see. The cold had teeth. Arya understood that now, feeling them sink deeper with each labored step. Through snow that reached her thighs. Her ceremonial dress, pale blue silk meant for a mating bond that never came, clung to her skin like ice, the delicate fabric offering less protection than her own failing will. How long had she been walking? 2 hours? 6? Time dissolved in the whiteout, each moment, bleeding into the next until there was only white and cold and the metallic taste of blood where she'd bitten her tongue to keep from screaming Marcus's name. Not in longing. In rage. I reject you, Arya Winters. The words still burned hotter than the frostbite claiming her fingers. Her mother's face flickered through her mind, Sarah, with the same silver hair, the same violet eyes that had marked them both as different. They fear what they don't understand, little Moon, her mother had whispered the night before the rogues came. The night she'd thrown herself between Arya and slavering jaws, buying her daughter 30 seconds to run. Sarah had died alone in the woods while the pack searched half-heartedly, more relieved than grieved. Arya was 8 years old when she learned she was something to be endured, not embraced. She remembered standing at the pack school's entrance, clutching a wildflower bouquet she'd picked for her teacher. The other mothers had physically pulled their children away, forming a barrier of bodies. Don't let her touch you, one had hissed. The moon goddess marked her. For a reason. Cursed blood breeds cursed wolves. The flowers had frozen in her small fists. She'd stopped picking them after that. Now, 14 years later, the cold was finishing what her pack had started. Arya's legs buckled, driving her to her knees in a snowdrift that welcomed her like an open grave. Peace, finally. The mountains would be kinder than Marcus. Than Alpha Donovan. Then every wolf who'd ever looked through her instead of at her. She closed her eyes. Then, impossible, inexplicable, heat exploded in her chest. Not the flush of hypothermia's final trick, but something ancient and demanding, a golden thread pulling taut beneath her sternum. Her eyes snapped open, glowing faintly in the storm's darkness. North. The pull sang one word through her dying body. North. Against all reason, Arya rose and walked. The cliff face materialized from the blizzard like a benediction, sheer rock veined with ice that shouldn't have offered shelter. But the pull in Arya's chest intensified, dragging her forward until her numb fingers found the edges of darkness, a fissure barely wide enough for her shoulders, concealed by an overhang that kept the entrance clear of drifting snow. She squeezed through, gasping as rock scraped her frozen skin, and stumbled into a cavern that opened like a cathedral. The wind's howl cut to silence. And then she smelled it, copper and iron, thick enough to coat her tongue. Blood. Her eyes adjusted to the darkness, and her breath stopped entirely. 12 white wolves lay scattered across the cave floor, their pale fur matted crimson. They were massive, easily twice the size of any wolf from Shadow Ridge, and even motionless. They radiated power. Silver-tipped arrows jutted from shoulders and flanks. Claw marks raked across ribs and throats, the edges blackened in a way that made her stomach turn. Poison. Arya should have run. Should have recognized predators even in their dying state and fled back into the merciful cold. Instead, her feet moved forward. The largest wolf lay nearest the cave's far wall, his body positioned as though he'd dragged himself there to shield the others. An arrow pierced his shoulder, buried deep. A gash split his ribs, revealing white bone beneath matted fur. His breathing was shallow, rattling. As she approached, one amber eye cracked open, fixed on her with an intensity that should have been impossible for a creature so close to death. He didn't growl, didn't bare teeth. He simply watched as she dropped to her knees beside him. Her voice cracked and used for hours. I don't know what I'm doing. But her hands were already moving, hovering over the arrow shaft. The heat in her chest, that golden pull, spread down her arms, into her palms, and suddenly she could feel him. Not just see his wounds, but sense them, the silver burning through tissue, the poison creeping toward his heart like black frost. Terror flooded her. This was impossible. She was nobody. Nothing. A cursed Omega who couldn't even keep her own mate. The wolf's eye held hers, and somehow she understood. Please. Arya grasped the arrow shaft and pulled. The arrow came free with a wet sound that echoed through the cave, and the wolf's body convulsed. Blood welled immediately, hot against Arya's frozen fingers. She pressed her palm over the wound, and that impossible heat surged again, but this time it carried agony with it. Fire raced up her arm as black tendrils appeared beneath her skin, crawling from her palm toward her elbow. She bit back a scream, understanding with horrible clarity she was drawing the poison into herself. Every instinct screamed to let go. She pressed harder. The darkness retreated from the wolf's wound, pulling into her hand like smoke being inhaled. When the last of it vanished, Arya collapsed sideways, retching, her arm ablaze. The poison burned through her system for eternal seconds before something in her chest, that golden warmth, rose up and consumed it, turning agony to ash. She lay gasping on the stone floor. 11 more wolves waited. Time became a blur of blood and moss. She scoured the cave walls for the silvery green growth her mother had once shown her, the kind that helped blood clot. Her ceremonial dress, already ruined, she tore into long strips with shaking hands, binding wounds that would have killed ordinary wolves hours ago. Each time she placed her palms over poisoned flesh, the black tendrils came, and each time she endured the burning until her gift transformed poison to nothing. By the 4th wolf, she was weeping. By the 7th, she couldn't feel her hands. By the 10th, she moved on pure instinct, her consciousness fracturing. She needed fire. The cold was returning, and these wolves, she couldn't let them freeze after surviving this much. Arya found Deadwood near the entrance, sheltered from snow. Her flint striker, a tiny thing she'd hidden in her dress pocket that morning when she still had hope, sparked on the 12th try. The flame caught, impossibly small and precious. She arranged the wolves in a circle around the growing fire, dragging bodies that weighed more than her entire frame. They were breathing steadier now, she thought. Or perhaps she was dying and couldn't tell the difference anymore. Arya collapsed against the largest wolf's side, seeking warmth, her vision swimming. Words rose. Unbidden from some deep place, her mother's lullabies, sung in the old language that predated pack divisions. She didn't know what the words meant, only that they'd always made her feel safe. Luna's breath upon the snow, guide the lost ones safely home. Her voice cracked, barely audible. But around the fire, 12 pairs of eyes opened, reflecting flame and something else. Something that glowed from within, ancient and knowing as her song wove through the darkness. The wolves' wounds began to knit. And Arya, finally, surrendered to the black. Arya woke to silence, the kind that follows storms when the world holds its breath. Gray dawn. Light filtered through the cave entrance, painting everything in shades of pearl and ash. The fire had died to embers, but warmth pressed against her back. She turned her head. The largest wolf was watching her, his amber eyes fully open now, clear and impossibly intelligent. For a heartbeat, they simply stared at each other, predator and prey, savior and saved. Then his body began to ripple. Arya scrambled backward, her back hitting stone as the wolf's form blurred and stretched. Bones cracked and reformed with sounds that shouldn't exist. White fur receded into skin tan and scarred and wholly human. She squeezed her eyes shut, heat flooding her face, but she could hear it happening all around her, 12 bodies breaking and remaking themselves, the cave filling with rasping breaths and low groans. "You can look," a voice said. Male, deep, with an accent she didn't recognize, cultured and ancient at once. "We're decent." She opened her eyes. 12 men surrounded the dead fire, all dressed in dark leather and wool that seemed to have appeared from nowhere. Warriors, clearly, their bodies bore the evidence of countless battles, even beyond last night's wounds. But the one who'd spoken commanded her attention like gravity itself. He knelt where the largest wolf had been, and even crouched he radiated authority. Tall, broad-shouldered, with silver-white hair that fell to his collar and a face that might have been beautiful before a scar carved from his left temple to his jaw. His eyes, those amber eyes, held the weight of centuries. "You saved us, little wolf," he said, his gaze never leaving hers. "Do you know what you are?" Arya's voice came out as a whisper. "Nobody. Nothing. A cursed Omega from Shadow Ridge." Pack. Something flickered across his scarred face, anger, perhaps, or pity. He rose in one fluid motion, and she realized he stood nearly a foot taller than any wolf she'd ever known. The others formed a semicircle behind him, a wall of silent, lethal attention. "Shadow Ridge," he repeated, tasting the words like poison. "The pack that banished you to die." It wasn't a question. She nodded, unable to look away from him. He moved closer, stopping just beyond arm's reach, and lowered himself to one knee so their eyes were level. The gesture, a warrior of his obvious rank kneeling before her, stole what little breath she had left. "My name is Adrian Silvercrest, Alpha King of the Northern Territories and the Silverlight Sovereignty." His voice dropped, reverent. "And you, Arya Winters, are no curse. You are Moon, Whisperer, rarest of the goddesses chosen. The wolf I've spent 5 years searching for." He extended his hand, palm up. "My destined Luna. My true mate." Arya stared at Adrian's outstretched hand as though it might burn her. "You're wrong. I'm not. I can't be anyone's mate. I was already rejected." Pain lanced through her chest at the memory, the severed bond still raw as an open wound. Marcus's face twisted in disgust. The pack's relieved whispers. "Finally, the curse won't spread." "Marcus was a fool bound by ignorance," Adrian said, his hand steady, patient. "And the bond you felt with him was false, a wolf's desperation to find connection where the goddess never intended one. Your true mate bond only activates when you meet the one destined for you." His amber eyes held hers with uncomfortable intensity. "As it did the moment I saw you kneeling beside me, your hands glowing with Luna's own light." My hands weren't glowing. I don't, but she looked down at her palms, saw the faint silver. Scars tracing her lifelines where the poison had entered. Scars that pulsed with barely visible luminescence in the cave's shadows. One of the warriors behind Adrian, a man with copper hair and kind eyes, stepped forward. My lady, I'm Rowan, healer of the Sentinel Guard. I've studied the ancient texts my entire life. What you did last night is impossible for any ordinary wolf. You extracted silver poisoning and venom from 12 dying warriors using only your bare hands and will. You sang the healing hymns in the first tongue, a language dead for 1,000 years. My mother taught me those songs, Arya whispered. She said they were just old lullabies. Adrian rose slowly, giving her space, and began to pace. Every 3 centuries, the moon goddess chooses a vessel, a wolf born with her direct blessing. Silver hair like moonlight, eyes the color of twilight, the ability to heal without herbs or magic, to sense danger before it strikes, to find safety where none should exist. He turned to face her. You found this cave in a blizzard that should have killed you within an hour. You knew exactly how to save us, though. You'd never trained as a healer. Tell me, Arya, what pulled you here? She touched her chest, where the golden thread still hummed. I felt something. A warmth. It led me through the storm. The Pathfinder instinct, Adrian said softly. The moon whisperer's gift of sanctuary. He moved closer again, and this time she caught his scent, pine and winter frost and something that made her wolf stir for the first time since Marcus's rejection. 5 years ago, our oracle delivered a prophecy. When 12 fall beneath poison claws, the moon's chosen will emerge from death's door, bearing salvation in cursed hands. We've been searching every pack, every territory. And if I don't want this? The words came out broken. If I can't be what you need? His expression gentled. Then you're free to go. But know this. You will never be nothing again. The journey began at midday, after Adrian's warriors had salvaged what supplies they could. From their ambush site, a narrow pass 2 miles south where rogue wolves had attacked with silver weapons and coordinated brutality that spoke of planning, not chance. Arya walked in the center of their formation, surrounded by living shields who'd been corpses 12 hours ago. Adrian led from the front, his white hair catching sunlight like a banner, while the others rotated positions with military precision. They'd offered her a cloak, thick fur-lined, with silk that probably cost more than her entire pack's winter stores. She'd accepted because pride seemed stupid when her dress was blood-stiffened rags. Kellen Stormbreak, my lady, said the wolf walking to her right, a man with a face like a battlefield map, scars crossing scars, and shrewd gray eyes that missed nothing. Chief strategist. And Adrian's second in command. You have questions. I can see them choking you. Arya glanced at him sidelong. Where are we going? Silverlight Stronghold. 5 days northeast through the Frostspine Pass. It's not an easy road. But Adrian won't risk the lower routes, not after yesterday. His jaw tightened. That ambush was too precise. Someone knew our patrol route. You think there's a traitor? I think someone wants our king dead, and they nearly succeeded. Kellen's gaze softened. Slightly. Until you. By the second day, she learned all their names. Rowan, the healer, walked beside her for hours, asking careful questions about what she'd felt while drawing poison, his scholarly fascination tempered by genuine awe. Thorn, a massive warrior who communicated primarily in grunts, had appointed himself her personal shadow, materializing whenever the path grew steep or the wind picked up to offer a steadying hand. There were the twins, Ash and Ember, who bickered constantly but moved like mirror images in combat formation. Garrett, not her Garrett, she reminded herself, swallowing bile, who told Terrible jokes to make her smile. Wolves named Flint and Ridge and Stone and Frost, all bearing northern surnames tied to the mountains they guarded. Adrian maintained distance, always at the formation's edge, though she felt his attention like pressure against her skin. At night, when they made camp, he took first watch while the others insisted she take the warmest spot by the fire. She'd wake to find someone's cloak added to her own, an extra ration of dried meat left within reach. Life debt, Rowan explained when she protested. You gave us ours back. Now ours belong to you. On the fourth night, as Thorn stood guard and the others slept, Adrian finally approached her. Across the fire. You're afraid of me, he said quietly. I'm afraid of what you want me to be. He nodded, understanding in those ancient eyes. Then I'll wait until you're not. Silverlight's stronghold rose from the mountain like a frozen dream made solid, white stone. Towers carved with intricate frost patterns, ice architecture that caught the afternoon sun and shattered it into rainbows. Arya stopped walking, her breath catching. It shouldn't exist. Nothing so beautiful should be possible. Home, Adrian said softly beside her, and she heard pride and longing woven together. As they passed through gates flanked by wolves in silver armor, Arya expected stares, whispers, the crossing gestures and protective wards she'd endured her entire life. Instead, she got something worse, reverence. A female warrior with platinum braids gasped. Silver-touched, she breathed, dropping to one knee. Others followed, guards, servants, nobles in rich furs, until half the courtyard knelt before her. Arya's hands trembled. Why are they? Your coloring, Rowan murmured. In the north, silver hair and light eyes mark the oldest bloodlines. You're walking proof of Luna's favor. He smiled slightly. What Shadow Ridge called cursed, we call blessed. The throne room was equally magnificent, vaulted ceilings supported by columns carved to look like frozen waterfalls, floors of polished stone that reflected like mirrors. But the beauty couldn't mask the tension that crackled through the assembled court. Alpha King Adrian returns, the herald announced. And with him, the prophesied moon. Whisper, Lady Arya Winters. Silence. Then the room erupted. An Omega? A man's voice cut through the chaos, sharp, aristocratic, dismissive. He emerged from the crowd, elderly, with iron-gray hair and cold blue eyes, wearing the elaborate robes of High Office. You expect us to accept a packless nobody as our Luna? Counselor Thaddeus, Adrian's voice dropped to permafrost. You will show respect to your future queen. Future? Thaddeus laughed, the sound bitter. She has no lineage, no training, no pact to vouch for her character. For all we know, she's a rogue plant sent to infiltrate. Thorn growled, a sound that vibrated through the floor. The other sentinel guards moved closer to Arya, forming a wall of lethal intent. She saved our lives, Kellen said quietly, dangerously. While you sat safe behind these walls, Counselor, she pulled arrows from our flesh and drew poison that should have killed us. Question her fitness again, and you question the goddess herself. Murmurs rippled through the court, some supportive, others uncertain. Arya saw the division clearly, younger wolves watching her with hope, older nobles exchanging skeptical glances. A slim woman with kind eyes smiled encouragingly. A cluster of warriors touched fists to hearts in salute. But Thaddeus's expression remained calculating, and something in his eyes made Arya's gift stir. In warning, that golden warmth pulsing in her chest like an alarm. The trials, Thaddeus declared. If she's truly Luna, let her prove it through the moon court. Trials. 3 tests as tradition demands. Adrian's jaw tightened, but he couldn't refuse without appearing weak. So be it. The trial of wisdom came first, 3 days after her arrival, Arya sat before the assembled court. In borrowed silk, midnight blue trimmed with silver, while Thaddeus and 4 other counselors fired questions designed to make her fail. A northern pack requests asylum after their alpha dies without heir. 2 rival wolves claim leadership. How do you decide? Counselor Thaddeus asked, his smile predatory. Arya's heart hammered, but she remembered her mother's stories, the pack politics Sarah had explained during their isolated nights. I'd ask which one the pack's warriors follow into battle, and which one the mothers trust with their children. Leadership is proven through loyalty. Earned, not bloodline claimed. A younger counselor nodded approvingly. Thaddeus's smile thinned. They questioned her for 3 hours, scenarios about resource allocation, territorial disputes, justice for crimes between packs. Some answers she knew. Others she reasoned through, letting her instincts guide her. That golden warmth in her chest pulsed whenever she spoke truth. Faded when she wavered. She passed. Barely. The trial of strength was worse. In the training grounds, before hundreds of spectators, she faced Lyra, a female warrior built like a mountain and known as the Stronghold's fiercest fighter. I can't shift, Arya whispered to Adrian beforehand. I've never been able to fully transform. Shadow Ridge said it proved I was defective. His eyes blazed with fury at her old pack, but his voice stayed gentle. Then fight as you are. You survived a blizzard and saved 12 dying wolves. You're stronger than you know. She lost the fight. Obviously. Lyra had her pinned in 90 seconds, arm locked behind her back. But as Arya hit the ground, that warmth surged through her body, and suddenly she could feel Lyra's next move before it happened. She rolled, evaded, and in a burst of impossible speed, swept the warrior's legs. The crowd gasped. Lyra laughed, delighted, and hauled Arya up. Moon whisper reflexes. I yield, my lady. The trial of heart waited 3 nights later under the full moon. Arya knelt in the sacred grove, a circle of ancient stones, while the court watched from beyond the perimeter. She was supposed to commune with the moon goddess, receive some sign of divine favor. For an hour, nothing happened. Thaddeus's smirk grew. Then Kellen burst through the tree-line, bloodied. Adrian! The patrol found evidence at the ambush site. He stumbled, caught himself. Silver weapons stamped with Silverlight Forge marks. The attack came from inside our territory. Chaos erupted. And as the court descended into accusations, Arya's chest burned white-hot. She looked at Thaddeus, saw black tendrils writhing around him, invisible to everyone else. The same poison from the cave. Her voice cut through the noise. Counselor Thaddeus orchestrated the ambush. The sacred grove went silent. Every eye turned to Arya, still kneeling in the moonlight, her hand outstretched toward Thaddeus. Around the counselor, visible only to her, black tendrils writhed. Like living shadows, the same poison signature she'd drawn from Adrian's wounds. You're mad, Thaddeus snarled, but his hand moved toward his belt. Adrian was faster. He had the counselor's wrist locked before the concealed blade cleared its sheath, a silver dagger, its edge black with poison. Explain this. The evidence poured out quickly after that. Kellen's patrol had found correspondence hidden in the ambush site, letters between Thaddeus and Alpha Donovan of Shadow Ridge. The plan had been elegant in its cruelty: eliminate Adrian and his sentinel guard, then ensure the moon Whisperer died in the mountains before she could unite the fractured northern packs under one banner. A unified North would threaten the Southern Territory's power, and Donovan had paid generously for Thaddeus's betrayal. You chose gold over your king, Adrian said, his voice lethal quiet. Thaddeus laughed, bitter and unhinged. I chose survival. You were going to tie us to an Omega. Freak, make her our queen, he lunged, somehow breaking Adrian's grip, the poisoned blade arcing toward the Alpha King's throat. Arya moved without thinking. The golden warmth exploded from her chest, and suddenly she was there, between them, her hands catching Thaddeus's wrist. Light blazed from her palms, pure silver radiance that made the watching wolves cry out and shield their eyes. The poison on the blade evaporated, hissing into smoke. Thaddeus screamed as the same black tendrils she'd drawn from wounds now pulled from his body, not poison he'd been infected with, but the darkness of his betrayal made manifest. She ripped it out, let it burn away in her light, and dropped him unconscious at Adrian's feet. When the glow faded, she stood panting, her violet eyes luminous. The entire court knelt. The goddess has spoken, the eldest counselor whispered. Moon Whisperer, Luna Chosen. None can dispute it now. The coronation happened that same night, under the winter moon's full face. Adrian placed a circlet of silver and ice diamonds on Arya's head, then took her hands in his. I, Adrian, Silvercrest, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, claim you as my true mate. If you'll have me. She looked at the male who'd waited patiently while she healed, who'd knelt before her when she was nothing, who'd given her time to trust again. I accept, she whispered, and the mate bond snapped into place, golden and unbreakable and right in a way Marcus's never was. Their kiss sealed it, and the stronghold erupted in celebration. Weeks later, Arya stood before the newly constructed sanctuary, a haven built into Silverlight's eastern wing. Moon's sanctuary, the sign read, a place for the rejected, the outcast, the wolves the world called cursed. Adrian wrapped his arms around her from behind. You're changing everything, Luna. She leaned into him, finally home. Good. This is a story about the difference between being wanted and being valued, about how true power comes not from conforming to others' expectations, but from embracing what makes you different. Arya's journey from rejected Omega to revered Luna explores trauma, healing, chosen family, and the revolutionary act of believing you deserve love after the world has taught you otherwise. Want more stories like Arya's? Comment below where you're watching from and let me know what you loved most about her journey. Don't forget to like if you believe everyone deserves their happily ever after. Your support helps me bring more epic wolf stories to life.